Swing it, boys, swing for the fence. Shove it, boys, make 'em miss. Some big league chew in a baseball souvenir. Come on, sing with me now. The Joe is home, sweet home. It's roll, tide, roll. The Joe is home, that's right. Home, sweet home. Hey, look, is that Roll Tide Willie over there? Blitz, Bama, Blitz.
Hey, again, everybody, welcome to the Weekly Joe. It's March 24th, 2025. I'm Paul Graham. I'm here tonight with Meghan Dennis, with Roger Myers in Tuscaloosa tonight, Drew Champlin coming to us from Hoover, and our very special guest, Alabama baseball legend Alex Avila, who is joining us from Florida, South Florida. And we'll get to him in a moment. First of all, thank you to Campland and Peter Slight for always providing the music for the lead-in and our theme song of the Joe. Big weekend in Alabama baseball. We're going to cover 4 games starting from last midweek through this Tennessee series this weekend. Number 1, Tennessee came to town. One good night, one so-so night, one bad day, and that was probably the best way to summarize the weekend. But we'll break it down, and we'll talk about the implications of that game or of that weekend. No time for resting, though. You got another game tomorrow night. You got another top 10 team coming to town this weekend, and we look forward to hosting the Oklahoma Sooners in their first trip to the Joe as a member of the SEC. But we'll get to all that later. Really pleased to have Alex here tonight. And Alex, how you doing, first of all?
I'm doing great. I appreciate the invite to come on the podcast here.
Yeah, thank you. We're glad to have you. We've had a smattering of guests. We've had a couple this year, but by far probably as far as former players go, I think this is the third former player we've had on before. We've had a member of the media, so we like to incorporate guests, talk a little bit about what's going on in their lives, and then what's going on with our program. Alex, you did your time at Alabama. You were there 2006, 2008. You did let me count it up, 13 years in the big leagues, or parts of 13 seasons.
That's right. Yeah, 13 years.
Leagues. We're going to ask you about different components of those years. That a lot of years is affiliated with baseball, still affiliated with baseball, and first of all, just tell us where you are, kind of what you're doing now that you've been out of the game as from the player perspective since 2021.
Yeah, well, after I retired in 21, just kind of jumped right into the media landscape a little bit, doing some broadcasting, really just to kind of test it out, because I think throughout my entire career, most people kind of pegged me to coach or play my hand at managing or going that route, staying on the field, which I kind of saw myself doing as well. And I still think, maybe down the road, I could, definitely see myself doing that. But the media opportunity, the broadcasting opportunity came up once I retired with MLB Network and with some other teams throughout the league as far as broadcasting games. And I thought it'd be a great way to kind of challenge myself, do something that would kind of put me outside my comfort zone a bit.
Sure.
At the same time, give me some more time at home, which was kind of the at the forefront of my mind at the time, with my kids getting older at the end of my career, and just wanting to spend more time with them and be Mr. Dad and husband to my wife. So
yeah, awesome.
Still doing that, and I'm enjoying every minute of it.
That's great.
How about your other profession? Fishing.
Professional fisherman. I was wondering when that was going to come up, how long it would take, but no, I do enjoy some offshore fishing. We fished some tournaments throughout South Florida and the Bahamas. Have a lot of friends in the industry growing up in South Florida doing it. So I get to dabble in that a little bit, have the time to be able to do that throughout the year, and I have a blast doing it, and a lot of good friends, a lot of good memories on a boat too.
You've actually won some tournaments.
Yeah, no, we've placed in some tournaments. This past December, we won one in Bimini in the Bahamas. So there's been some decent sized checks here and there from winning the tournament or
nice.
so. Hey, Roger, but at the same time, most of the time you're not bringing home anything with those fishing tournaments. You end up coming back with a hefty bill from all the boat fuel you started burning,
and a sunburn,
and a good
boats
sunburn.
are expensive, right?
Boats can be a little expensive, but I've got some friends that enjoy it as well, and we all kind of split it up and just have a good time with it.
Does cousin Nick still help you some?
Yeah. No, my cousin fishes with me quite a bit still. It's kind of his. We joke because it's kind of like his part-time job off his real job as a full-time scout for the Tigers. So down here in South Florida. So, he gets to partake when he has a little bit of time on his hands.
I ran into Nick at the Super Regional up in Wake Forest in 2023.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll get to some questions. Obviously, baseball family. I mean, to the core. I mean, so there never was a question anything but baseball, right? I mean,
no, not really. I get asked that question actually a lot. Like, did you ever, get burnt out, or did your dad ever like push you, or your grandfather ever push you to play? And honestly, they never did. I just, as a young kid, I always my earliest memories were always at a baseball field, going to a baseball field, whether it was with my grandfather or with my dad. And so just, by happenstance or just by going with them, I started playing. I loved it. I watched them see how much they enjoyed coaching and scouting. And so as a kid, that's really all I played. I dabbled in other sports on occasion here and there, and I enjoyed playing other sports, but I would always find myself like I just wanted to play baseball. And as I got older, it became more like just I wanted to play year round as much as possible. I dragged my dad to the batting cages on a daily basis when he had time. And I mean, he probably could have cared less if I played baseball or any other sport, or if I, decided to play, tuba in the band or whatever, just as long as I was happy.
Yeah.
And now I will say though, as I got older and started to get a little more serious about it, once getting into high school and actually, starting to get recruited by Alabama and some other colleges, it was kind of like, okay, if this is something you think you want to be able to try to do, not just get a college education, but also possibly play professionally. He steered me in the right direction as far as like what it would take, from a just a dedication and work ethic standpoint, in order to do that. And so that kind of geared me, as far as where my focus needed to be. And then when I went to Alabama, I tell people all the time that because I got drafted out of high school, chose not to sign or go to a junior college, and chose to go to Alabama. And I tell people that was the best decision I ever made in my life, because I went from a boy to a man real quick in 3 years.
Well, from my perspective and from other people's, like, you were a man when you got here. You carried yourself like a big leaguer.
Well, I had this beard when I was 18.
I mean, you were just so mature. And you grew up in a major league clubhouse, so I mean, you knew how to act. But
knew the game.
Give some background on your grandfather real quick, but people that don't know.
Yeah, well, my grandfather worked for the Dodgers for many years, well over 50 years. He was a vice president, and he ran the Latin American operations for the Dodgers. Also started the first Dominican academy. Now every major league team has an academy in the Dominican Republic, but he was the first one to start it. The Dodgers were kind of at the forefront of that, and he scouted and signed tons of major league ball players, including guys like Adrian Beltre, who was just inducted in the Hall of Fame, Pedro Martinez, his brother Ramon Martinez, Raul Mondesi. When the Dodgers had drafted Mike Piazza, they sent him to the Dominican to learn how to catch from my grandfather. So, his time in the Dodgers was extremely productive, not only from what was produced out of that academy and the players that he had signed, but just the friendships that he made. One of his best friends was Tommy Lasorda. So he was very much a figure in within our family. He would come to little league games of mine. We'd have, dinner with him anytime he was in town, or if we were in town in Vero Beach during spring training, visiting my grandfather. So, we go back, like, as far as, it was baseball, what I wanted to do at a young age. It was ingrained pretty early. And there was some, I remember as a kid, like, I would get to experience things that most kids didn't. So I had a bit of a head start in that aspect. To where I'm playing a little league game as a 10-year-old, and all of a sudden, Tommy Lasorda is, sitting there in the stands. He would actually, sometimes there'd be a crowd. Anywhere he would go, there'd be a crowd. And, all the kids or the parents would want autographs, and there'd be a line in the stands waiting for him to sign an autograph. And he'd wait tell everybody to wait as I would come up to bat, because he wanted to watch my at bat. I'd take my at bat, and then he'd continue signing autographs. But him and my grandfather were very good friends. So just, I grew up many summers going to the Dominican with my grandfather, and just spending summers there with him. And that's, where, a lot of my kind of baseball knowledge and where I learned how to play the game came from. Because I would go through a typical day with all the players in the camp. So, like, I'd get up in the morning with the guys, eat breakfast. We'd go through, a workout in the morning, and I'd go through it with them as best as I could as a 10, 11, 12-year-old. And, we'd stop, have lunch, and then they'd play a game, around 1, 2 o'clock. And I'd sit in the stands with my grandfather, watch the game play. And then we'd have dinner, get up and do it all again the next day. And, great. And that was kind of like the routine every summer with me and my brother and my cousin. And that's kind of like where we really got the passion to play the game.
Tommy was your godfather, correct?
Yeah, Tommy became he was my godfather, and then I was named after Al Campanis, who was the general manager for the Dodgers, and Tommy. My middle name is Thomas. Yeah, so that era of Dodgers baseball and the people within that organization were very influential, not only on my grandfather, but my dad as well. As he kind of, started through the ranks, throughout, college and professional baseball.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
You mentioned Alabama earlier. Why did you end up picking Alabama?
Great question. Easy answer. Opportunity to play. Mm-hmm. It's a funny story within our family, because my wife went to Florida, right? And my father-in-law went to Florida. And so as I was going through high school, I didn't get recruited by Florida. I didn't get recruited by Miami. So there were most of the Florida schools I was not getting recruited by, and at least the Big Ten schools. And partly some of that was, I think, because my dad was in baseball and working for the Tigers at the time, I was moving around a lot, especially playing baseball. So I played a lot of baseball, especially travel baseball in the Midwest. So there wasn't a whole lot of games, for colleges to see me in Florida. Yeah. But Alabama ended up, seeing me at the East Coast Showcase in Wilmington, North Carolina. And from there kind of started the recruiting process. And I went on a visit and, sat down with Jim Wells, and he had you guys know Jim Wells very well, that, we had a very honest conversation, and just, in that conversation, it was, you're going to have an opportunity to start as a freshman. You have to earn it, but the opportunity will be there. And out of all the other schools that were recruiting me, that was, I wouldn't say it was the only school that was going to give me that opportunity. But when I went on a trip to Tuscaloosa, saw the campus and went to a football game, and just, took in the entire, everything that Tuscaloosa and Alabama had to offer in that recruiting visit, plus the opportunity to play in the SEC, it was too good to pass up. And like I said, that was just a decision that I had to make, and it easily, by far, one of the best decisions I made, at least for my baseball career, because it was a tremendous experience.
Yeah. So 2006 to 2008, you're playing in Alabama. I mean, 2006 was a incredible year.
Yeah.
Kind of a tragic ending in super regionals there. I mean, we obviously derisively refer to it as the Chad Flack game, but
Yeah.
it was this close to being the Alex Avila game, right? I mean,
Top of the ninth.
Yeah.
Tell about that. That's, I mean, that, you know, it's kind of a low light, but it's really a highlight. It was a great game, obviously.
It was a phenomenal game. I mean, that team, that Alabama team, we had, if I'm remembering correctly, we had 5 big leaguers on that team.
Five big leaguers. Yes.
Yeah. 5 really good big leaguers on that team. And, you know, leading up to the end of that game, you know, like in that at bat, hitting that home run. I mean, you want to say like, yeah, that's what you kind of had in your mind, but like, I'm just trying to put a good at bat together,
Right.
in that situation, just trying to hit the ball hard. And, luckily I always had good power to the opposite field and was able to, square that ball up pretty well. But what I remember most actually from that, aside from everything that happened with Chad Flack hitting 2 homers and the game-winning homer and all that kind of stuff, was at the end of it, there were a lot of scouts at that game, obviously, including my dad and a lot of scouting directors, because obviously that North Carolina team, you had Andrew Miller and Josh Bard, 1-2 and on that team. So there were a lot of people there, and all the people that my dad worked with, or colleagues of his from other teams and stuff like that, he just got flooded with messages and just like, oh my God, like, because they're all watching the same game, and I'm a freshman, so like I'm not even really on anybody's radar at that point.
Yeah.
And so I just remember having a conversation with him after that, like just how like taken aback he was, because it was like that first like real experience that I was on like a kind of a national stage like that, a game on ESPN. He was at the game, so like he experienced the entire crowd. That place was going nuts after that home run.
Yes.
So I remember that. I remember like his feeling, like seeing him, how excited he was for me, and just kind of that moment between him and myself, the most from that game. And then, tragic ending, but a tremendous year nonetheless.
Yeah. That was great. So I've never asked this, and I've always wanted to. Were you and RJ a package deal to come to Alabama?
Tell him who RJ is.
Yeah. No, RJ Burgess, he is my best friend. So we were in high school together in South Florida. And RJ played football, never played baseball. Well, he did play baseball, but he was big guy, 6'4", 250, 260 pounds. So he played football in high school, and but we were great friends. And he had a chance probably to play football at maybe a couple of smaller colleges and stuff like that, but ends up getting accepted in Alabama, and just really wanted the college experience. Knowing the fact that I was going to Alabama, like it was like once I signed, he got accepted. It was like, oh, we're doing this together. And it was definitely kind of sort of like a package deal. I think me going there, I think made his decision a little bit easier for sure to go there, because we were the only two from that high school going to Alabama, and oh man, we had a great time. And that house we rented between me, RJ, and Tommy was a great house.
And then you helped him get on it, and RJ get on as a manager. I mean,
awesome.
There was an opening, to be a manager, a baseball manager, and after I believe RJ, I believe it was after our freshman year, so our sophomore year.
Yeah.
So I brought it up to Coach Wells. Hey, if you want to interview him for it, I think he'd be great. And I mean that was something he took a lot of pride in. I know he had a tremendous time doing it, and a lot of people loved him there.
He was, yeah, he worked tremendously hard. He was very good. So you mentioned Tommy. So what's your best Tommy Hunter story from then
My best
that you can tell?
yeah, my best PG one with Tommy. Actually, so the funny thing with that house, myself, Tommy, and RJ, and I'm the smallest guy out of those three, right? And so I mean, clearly there was going to be a lot of food going through that house. We had a normal refrigerator, freezer. We had another deep freezer chest, and then another stand-up freezer chest. And the reason being is because a lot of times, like myself and RJ, during Christmas break or something, we'd come back to South Florida. We'd go fishing, catch a swordfish or some, mahi or tuna or what have you. We'd bring it back with us. So we needed, some space to keep all that fish. Plus, during hunting season, the three of us would go hunting. We'd kill a couple of does and, bring that meat, into the freezer as well. And then, throughout the year, our parents would send us care packages and stuff like that. So we needed a lot of space. But the one thing about Tommy that I think a lot of people didn't know was he loved to bake. He's a big baker. He loved baking cakes, cupcakes, all that kind of stuff. And one of the nights he just was in a baking mood and ended up baking a big sheet pan cake. And I don't remember who started the conversation now, whether it was RJ or some of the other guys that were just kind of hanging out at the house, but there was a wager on who could eat the entire cake between me or Tommy. So we actually we split the cake, and it was a wager of okay, who can finish the cake without throwing it back up, basically. And needless to say, he won. Oh, but he was a big baker, loved to bake. But it was a fun house. We always had, the guys would always come over, hanging out, playing music, watching either baseball games, football games, and had a great time.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you said something a little bit earlier. I thought and I had made a note to think about this to ask you, and you kind of brought it up. You mentioned getting drafted, and I think you were 34th or 36th round out of high school. It was a 40-round draft back then, so it's and then did your 3 years at Alabama. You came out, you got picked in the 5th round, I believe.
That's right.
We maybe I'm probably doing Rob a favor tonight. We got probably 5 guys signed in our class this year that are probably potentially guys that could sign out of the draft. What kind of advice would you give your son or someone you knew in that position that's signed to go play SEC ball? And the alternative, while there's a good bit of money there, maybe if depending on how high they get picked, is what did you experience in those years that you think you probably wouldn't have experienced had you gone doing bus rides and staying in Ramada Inns all over the
it was at 18 out of high school, it's either I had 3 decisions to weigh, and it was either you sign out of high school or you go to a junior college to be eligible the following year,
right?
Or go to a 4-year university, like Alabama for me. And it was one of those things where you take the advice, and luckily, with my upbringing, I probably had a bit of a head start, but as far as understanding what is needed out of yourself at 18 years old when you're playing in the minor leagues and kind of going through that development process. The biggest thing that I tell people though is you just have to be honest with yourself too, because that was my biggest thing where I think deep down, as bad as I wanted to play professionally as soon as possible, I knew I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready physically. Mentally, I probably could have gotten by, but I don't think still I understood what it would take from a work ethic standpoint, and how to
excel.
Not just excel, but handle failure.
Sure.
That's I think that's the biggest. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, because most guys coming out of high school have never really experienced any sort of failure. Right. They're the best. They're the best player on their team. They probably pitch and hit. They can kind of do it all in high school, especially when you're going to a big time program like Alabama or playing in the SEC. you're usually the best player on your team for the entire time as a kid. And so I think I understood that, where, I didn't know how to, I didn't think I was ready to understand how to deal with that. And when I went to Alabama, I quickly understood how, that I definitely wasn't ready, because that first year in Alabama, it's not so much the competition, but it's the guys around you on the team. You see guys that are just as good, if not better than you, on your team, let alone playing against. So I wouldn't say it's a shock, because you expect it going to a place like Alabama.
Sure.
But at the same time, it starts that process of how to deal with it mentally, to deal with failure, to deal with adversity, to overcome it, how to get through it. And so it's more of a learning process on yourself. And I tell people, after my 3 years in Alabama, professional baseball was a cakewalk. Schedule and stuff like that, but just the competition, on the day in and night grind, just being able to deal with that, was I feel like it was way easier, the fact that I went to Alabama, than if I didn't.
Yeah. I think we're going to snip that 2.5 minutes or whatever that was. We're going to snip that, send it to Rob for his recruiting.
Yeah, right.
And
I get asked that question a lot. I get asked that question a lot by parents, with kids that are playing in high school, that are trying to weigh going to college, or if they get drafted, or all those different decisions they have to make. And I've said it to every single person that has asked me. It's like, going to Alabama, going to a 4-year college like that, where you're going to have an opportunity to play against a good competition. Even it doesn't have to be the SEC. Just going to some place that provides structure and helps you understand how to work, and how to deal with failure and adversity, was huge going into professional baseball, and not just professional baseball. It translates into life as well.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a little bit of money in it nowadays. You
and now you can get paid doing it. So why not?
And baseball is a game of failure, so you have to learn.
Absolutely.
Learn that, right?
No doubt.
Yeah. Roger,
I've covered most of it.
Okay.
Alex, do you realize that you are the active leader of all-time Alabama players in Major League Baseball in home runs?
I did know that, actually. Yes.
Paul's brother John Graham runs the Alabama Pro Updates Twitter account, and he keeps up with everything. Anybody that ever played anything at Alabama does.
Right. I think that's how I found out, where
from John.
Well, at the time I didn't have Twitter.
Right. I remember that.
It was I believe it was RJ. Because RJ keeps up with all that stuff. He was the one that I think sent me the tweet to let me know after I hit the home run.
Awesome.
That was actually pretty cool. And then I kind of started, I looked into it a little bit, because I did not know that, like, I was even close to something like that.
Right.
If I remember, he kind of counted it down all season. Until you got to it finally. Yeah.
Oh, I think, Paul, we mentioned your big season when you were started the All-Star game and won the Silver Slugger and all that. How special was that, getting an All-Star game? Being
amazing.
A starter in an All-Star game.
Yeah, no, that was that's a story in itself as well, where so going into that season, I was I had done enough over the course of my previous season and a half to kind of get the opportunity to be the starter. But in that off season, we had also signed Victor Martinez, and he came in to help with the workload, and I got off to such a good start in that season that they couldn't take me out of the lineup. Luckily, they had signed him to also be the designated hitter, and from there it was just with each passing game, as I continued to do well, just gained confidence. And leading up to the All-Star game, when they were doing all the fan voting, I was actually behind Russell Martin for the Yankees by quite a bit to be the starter. And the Tigers and a bunch of the guys on the team like really did a huge push on social media. This is like when social media like kind of first started.
Infancy of Twitter, yeah,
yeah, and so there was kind of like a big push to get the fans to start voting, and Detroit came out in droves, and the fans really started voting, and within that last week, like I get all my vote totals like shot up and ended up passing Russell Martin, and I was like taken aback by that. I never set out to do that. Like I just wanted to get to the big leagues, and but the fact that I had that opportunity to start and then just kind of experience that with my family. Everybody came to the game. It was in Arizona, and just a great setting. But that was definitely a magical season.
That's awesome. So Bama Pro updates. My brother and the well-known Alabama Twitter account always sends us questions, and he sent a couple of these. I'm going to direct these to you because these were topics I was going to hit. First of all, how many times did your dad trade you?
That's good. He did one time.
Yeah, he released you once too, didn't he?
Well, I was a free agent. He decided not to pursue me. But then a year later realized his mistake and then decided to sign me as a free agent. But actually, the year he signed me back as a free agent, that off season, I was having another great, really good season leading up to the All-Star break, and we had kind of fallen back in the standings a bit, and that was the year when they had decided to start, trying to trade some of the older guys like myself from that core Tigers teams that that we ended up winning the division 4 straight years, and trying to stockpile some younger talent. And leading up to that trade deadline, there was a lot of talk of like the Cubs needing a catcher, and sure enough, leading up to it, it actually happened like just right before the deadline. And back then, the deadline was midnight, and we had a game. It was midnight on a Sunday, like July 31st. It fell on a Sunday or something like that, and it was a midnight. At midnight, we had finished a 1 o'clock game in Detroit, and the whole time, like you're thinking you might get traded, get taken off the field kind of thing throughout the game with the deadline looming. Never happened. We finished the game. We get on the plane. We fly to New York. We're going to start a series on Monday against the Yankees. We get to the hotel, and it's probably 9:30, 10 o'clock, and he calls me. And he goes, "Don't bother unpacking. It's not a done deal, but it's probably going to get done before the deadline." And sure enough, like right around 11:30 or so, he calls me. He goes, "You're going to get a call from Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer in a minute. We just traded you to the Cubs." And it was just like, you're having a great season. Good luck with them. I love you. And that was it.
Awesome. Yeah.
the next day I was on a flight to Chicago.
Yeah. So the other one he had, oh man, I just lost it. Give me 1 second. And then I'll ask this other, how did you end up playing second base in a game for the Nationals? and did you end up on the injured list afterwards?
And how did you pull a hamstring playing second base?
Well, it wasn't a hamstring. I actually blew out both my calves.
Calves.
This is where I kind of started to realize, hey, this might be the end for me.
Body's breaking down. Yeah. This is your final year.
Yeah, my body started to break down a bit, but actually, so leading up to that game, we had the couple of games before. Trey Turner had broken his finger hitting for the cycle, and on the last hit, he needed a triple. Ends up hitting a triple and diving in head first. Ends up breaking his finger, so he was kind of out a couple of games. It never, he never had to go on the injured list or anything like that. It was just, something he would be able to deal with as long as the swelling was down. But we were down an infielder, and then our backup was Jordy Mercer for shortstop. And one of our backup infielders was Jordy Mercer. The next game, he ends up pulling his quad. And all of a sudden, we're down 2 infielders going into the next game. Now, they couldn't call anybody up fast enough because the two infielders that were on the roster that were on in AAA also got hurt during those 2 days. So leading into that game, we had no backup infielders aside from Ryan Zimmerman, who was he was playing, first base a little bit, DHing, right-handed bat off the bench. That was also his last season as well. And our bench coach comes up to us before that game. We have no other infielders. We're the only 2 guys left, on the roster on the bench that wasn't in the starting lineup. And he comes up to you, goes, "Okay, which one of you guys wants to play second base?" And I'm in my mid to late 30s. He's in his late 30s. We're looking at each other. We both point at each other like, "Is it you? Is it you?" And Zimmerman's like, "Well, I can't throw." It's like, "Well, I can't move unless I'm squatting." And so it was like, okay, well, I guess I'll do it. And I had plenty of experience in the infield, and the good thing is, back then you can shift, and now with the new shift rules in Major League Baseball, it would have been a little bit more difficult for me. So the way we played it was I started at second, but every time there'd be a left-handed hitter, we'd shift the third baseman and the shortstop over to that side of the diamond, and I'd go over to the shortstop side where there might be less of a chance of me getting a ball. Sure enough, though, I've got 2 chances over there with left-handed hitters, and then also at second base. But
that's all.
During that game, I ended up actually pulling both my calves. How I did that, I attribute it to my 13 years of catching and my age. But it was I still finished the game, but it was hard to walk the next day.
So the other thing I was going to get into, because this is a really cool story I think everybody would be very familiar with. We're going to talk about no-hitters, and you probably know where I'm going here. In all time in baseball history, 2 guys have caught 4 no-hitters. All right. So there's Veritek, and then Carlos Ruiz, who caught Halladay and Hamels, and those guys are the Phillies. So those guys caught 4. 16 guys have caught 3 no-hitters in all-time baseball. There've been, let me see what the number was, 326 no-hitters all time. Between those 2, you've got 17% of the no-hitters were caught by those guys. I counted up, I think there are 42 guys have caught 2 no-hitters. So you get right down to there's 60 catchers that have caught 43% of the no-hitters all time. You called Justin Verlander's no-hitter in 2010.
2011.
I'm sorry, 2011. Yeah, the kind of conventional no-hitter.
Right.
And then talk about the no-hitter that you caught that everybody's gonna know what we're talking about here.
Perfect game, no less.
That was in 2010, the almost perfect game.
He was 10.
Yeah, it was Armando Galarraga was pitching that game against Cleveland, and he had, if I remember correctly, it was he threw 88 pitches, and which at the time when you throw a complete game under 90 pitches, everyone always used to call that a Maddox, where Greg Maddox, that was kind of his thing, and but he was extremely efficient that day, and Armando, at that time, he's kind of an up and down guy between AAA and the big leagues with us, kind of a swing man, 5th starter. And there were times he had really good stretches with us during those years and won a lot of big games. And that day was just like, his fastball command was on point. His slider was always his best pitch to get strikeouts, but for some reason that night was just, it was sharper. He had better command of it. There was nothing extraordinary or amazing coming out of the bullpen before that game. People ask me that all the time. Like, well, how did he look in the bullpen? Did you know he was going to have a good game? It's like, you usually don't coming out of the bullpen or when the pitcher's warming up. I mean, I've seen some guys have the worst bullpens before a game and then go out and throw 7 shutout innings, and other guys that look amazing, and you're like, oh man, this guy's got it on tonight, and he's out of the game in a second. And but just that particular night, his command was on. There was a couple of big plays in that game. The one that everyone kind of talks about in that game was it was a fly ball hit to left center field, and Austin Jackson, the center fielder, made a tremendous running catch kind of over his shoulder
I was watching
up,
that.
up against the fence. And another play though early in the game that people don't realize that kind of saved it too. There was a comebacker that hit Armando in the leg that ricocheted. Usually when a pitcher gets hit with a ball like that, a comebacker, and it ricochets, if he doesn't get to it, it
there's no
ends
recovery.
up being a base hit. There's no recovery. It goes straight to Brandon Inge at third base, and he makes a nice play to get the runner. There's always those kind of things that happen in a game like that. And then leading up to the final play of the game, where ground ball hit to Miguel Cabrera, and Armando's covering the bag, and people asked me, did you see that he was out or safe? And I was backing up the play, so I was kind of towards the first base dugout in foul territory, and so from my angle, I couldn't necessarily see, whether he was clearly out or safe. To me, I looked closer from my angle than it actually was. But my thought was I thought, oh, maybe he missed the bag. Because I thought clearly he beat him there. And I thought maybe he just missed the bag with his foot. But then usually you'd see the umpire give the signal that he's off the bag. When I didn't see that, and he just said plainly safe. And then I saw Cabrera's reaction, just being kind of right. He's right in my line of sight. And I'm like, man, and it was I was in shock a little bit. And I had to collect myself real quick because we still had a game to play.
And
the game to finish. And I got back behind the plate, and everyone's still upset. Guys are yelling at the umpire. Fans are booing. They're getting upset. Armando he was so used to pitching out of the windup the entire game. Not being in the stretch, actually pitched from the windup with the guy on first base. And he ends up taking off to second base because it was a close game at the time still. And I had to go out there and remind him, hey, no, you got to pitch the stretch here.
Reset.
And we end up getting the next hitter to ground out. And then, the place was just, I felt so bad for Jim Joyce because he was one of the best umpires in baseball, one of the most well liked as well from the players. And I always enjoyed working with him behind the plate. And everyone was there was so much vitriol, towards him, coming off that field, to where I think he started to realize, man, I really missed it. Now there was no replay at the time. This was one of the plays that kind of started getting people talking about having instant replay in baseball. And the great thing about it, though, what came about this, was just the sportsmanship afterwards. Because one thing that happened, everyone was really upset after the game. Jim Leland actually was very quick to understand that, hey, we need to kind of change this narrative a little bit, because there was so much hate going towards Jim Joyce, and Jim was so upset. Jim Joyce was so upset. He came in. He apologized to Leland. He apologized to. He talked to Armando, and was just so upset about it. And before that night, Jim Leland made sure to let us all know, it's hey, the next day, the fans are going to follow our lead as players and how we react. So he wanted to make sure we all understood, we have to do this the right way. And one of the best things he did that next day, when Jim Joyce was going to be the home plate umpire, which, to his credit, MLB was going to let him not do it. Take the day. And he's like, no, it's my turn behind the plate. I'm going to do my job. And he went out there knowing that he was probably going to get booed like crazy by the fans. And Gene Lamont, our third base coach, and Jim Leland decided, hey, let's send Armando out there. To where when Jim Joyce comes out to the home plate, let's send Armando out there, because then it'll maybe quell the boos a little bit and the cheers. And then once they see the reaction, it was it turned on a dime. All of a sudden, people understood, hey, this is a human being here. He made a mistake. He owned up to it. And just the the lesson, I think, after that game made it more famous than if he actually would have completed the perfect game, because there's been, as few no-hitters in perfect games there's not too many people that can just name them off the top of their head.
No,
like even when I think about perfect games, there's not too many I could just name off the top of my head, but that's one that no one will ever forget because of that.
Yeah, 24 in history. Only one guy's caught 2 of them. Ron Hassey was the only guy that's caught 2. So 23 different catchers have caught perfect games. We'll call you the 24th.
I appreciate it. During those years, though, in Detroit, catching those pitching staffs, I came close to a lot of no-hitters.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have one you caught Verlander on one. I mean, this would have been a second, and then I think Verlander had one broken up in the 9th that you were catching as well. That's kind of cool. Yeah. He had some others.
He had a couple in that 2011 season where he won the MVP. That were broken up. One in the 9th, one in the 8th.
Yeah.
And then a couple other guys in that rotation as well.
Yeah.
Had some no-hitters late in the games, broken up in the 8th and 9th inning. So it was a true joy to catch that during those years.
Very cool piece of history there, and I really appreciate you giving the insight on that, because it's just something. It's something nobody can forget, and like you said, it's just a great story of forgiveness and grace, and just a whole lot of life lessons there to learn from that particular game. We appreciate all the insight on your your playing career, Alabama, Detroit, and the Nationals and whatnot. We'll get into a little bit the week with Alabama here, and glad to have you here and provide input. We know you don't sit there like we talked about. You probably don't sit there and follow these games 3 and 4 hours at a time like we all do, but we know you can give us a little insight, because these guys are going through the same thing you were going through 20 years ago, and it's kind of cool to talk about.
Stay as long as you can, as long as you want to. If you need to fade on us, let us know.
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay, good. So we go through a week. Well, we went 2-2 this week. We forget we had a midweek. These midweek games, when we get into the next Monday, seem like they were so long ago.
They help you out a little bit too on a series loss.
We had a hell of a midweek game last Tuesday night with South Alabama, with a walk-off win in the 10th on a home run by Cade Snell. A game we trailed by 3 runs, which kind of was the theme for the weekend with Tennessee. But Drew, Meghan, thoughts on the midweeker that just passed?
Let me defer to Meghan, because I was in Germany then.
Oh, that's right. You were in Germany.
It started when I couldn't watch anything on ESPN. I did listen to the radio.
Yeah.
But I think it was like 11:30 my time. We were down 4-1. I was tired. I was flying home the next day. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. I woke up and saw the final score.
I would say kind of Roger's point that he made, like going into it, of like it was the perfect trap game, and
exactly.
I really thought that's exactly what it was going to be, and wasn't our best night by any means, but it kind of shows kind of the testament of the season up until maybe this weekend, of just like the guys are going to find a way. I think having it go into extras, we didn't want that. Definitely was more of a bullpen game than I think we expected as well. But all in all, not going to complain about getting good win over a South team that's always good.
Right,
Alex, we had just left College Station from sweeping Texas A&M on Sunday, and then we had Tennessee #1 coming in on Thursday. So this game being on Tuesday was
definitely a trap game.
It's just definitely a trap. So.
Well, playing the #1 team in the country, that in the coming weekend, I mean, it's easy to overlook that midweek game, and Meghan said it right there. Like, South Alabama, like even when I was, playing for Alabama, South Alabama was always good, and it's a team that easily you could, you go into, not, with all your guards up, that you can easily, look up and, oh man, we're losing this game and it's late in the game. And then you're trying to do everything you can to salvage it towards the end. And, they were able to do that.
Yeah. This game it didn't go according to plan at all. We get JT Blackwood, our normal Tuesday night starter, goes out, throws the first inning, comes to the dugout, And as Rod says in post game, he's like throwing up in a garbage can. So he's got a virus or a bug or something. And we immediately have to turn to Aiden Finterry to come in and really had two really good. I'm assuming he was in the plan for him to come in third inning, fifth inning, whatever it might be. Aiden did a great job. He had not gotten a lot of innings before, up to this point. But his last two outings have been really, really solid for us, Megan.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to see him getting more innings and finding, a kind of spot because
kind of role. Yep.
Yeah, we brought him in, to kind of be, I guess, kind of that transfer guy. And I think we definitely saw him more than we wanted to on Tuesday, or at least earlier than we wanted to.
Yeah.
But I don't think, you plan for your starting pitcher to go be hurling in a trash can. So
No, that's right. It was a great one to avoid. Midweek games, these things can be such traps. On this same night that we pull this one off in extras, Wake Forest drops one 11-8 to Liberty. So another highly ranked team. Florida State drops one 9-3 to Mercer. They just got mauled at home. Tennessee loses their first game of the year. I think it was 7-6 to East Tennessee State, and a really good game. And I think the point we made is, there's guys everywhere now, right? There's guys playing all these. It's really kind of equalized a little bit. Guys are staying and playing longer. You're only drafting 20 rounds worth. You don't have as many minor league teams, and so East Tennessee can up and knock off Tennessee on a Tuesday night if Tennessee's not throwing their Friday, Saturday, Sunday guy, right?
The parity is definitely there throughout college baseball.
Yeah.
I remember, I'm now at the point where it's like, back in my day, but I remember my time at Alabama, we'd lose a midweek game and it'd be to the turf field right after the game, running 62 60-yard sprints, one for every game that season. So, nowadays it's a little bit tougher going through those midweek games, just because, like you said, the parity's there. There's guys are staying longer. There's less major league rounds, less minor league teams. So the competition is all throughout.
Right. So we're down 4-1 in this one. Later on I think this is in the bottom of the fifth. Will Hodo hits the 3-run homer, gives us a 5-4 lead. We kind of hold on to that lead into the ninth, and their guy, and I'd have to find the guy's name, but he just absolutely piped that ball. That ball off the scoreboard off our closer Carson Osmer. Smith is John Smith is the batter hit it. I'm looking at it again. So they tied up in the ninth, and then in extras, we got a really good inning from Austin Morris, and I think between what Austin did that night, what we saw him do this weekend, I think what we saw him do, and what we've seen him do the last 3 or so outings, that's been a very pleasant development, right?
Yeah, he had one rough one, kind of early, and he kind of fell out of favor a little bit.
Yeah.
And then these last three, he's really, really done well.
Yeah. So this builds it all up. So great. This is a great appetizer, but we knew what was coming this weekend. We know what Tennessee's about. I think I'd referred to them as a death machine earlier in the year when they were just chewing up these out of conference opponents. They plow through the first weekend series of the season. And here they are coming to town, and we had taken them down 2-3 last time, and that's the last series that they've lost. It's the first SEC series of the year. They won the next 9. They won their super, or they won the regional. They won their super. They won the College World Series, and they won their opener. So it's hard to beat these guys. And Drew, when you saw these arms they put out there, each of these 3 nights, you kind of understand why.
Yeah, their offensive attack, they were missing their really good player. I can't remember his name, but the guy who transferred from Louisville.
Klein, Kein or Klein.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was gone, but so their offense, they had a few good bats. They didn't seem as scary offensively as they did last year, but they just kept running out arms who were all throwing 95. So, the two things I was impressed about was how we were able to get to Doyle. We made him kind of look like last year at Ole Miss, the guy who had the 5 ERA, had the big say. He still struck out a lot of guys, but we had some good at bats off of him. And we really hit up their Saturday relief ace, Nate Snead. I mean, scored
Yeah.
every inning on him. Should have scored more. Should have kept. I mean, there's a lot. We'll get to Saturday. There's lots of airing of grievances from that one to talk about. But Sunday, those guys just really shut us down. Freshmen too, I think. So yeah, those I think are going to be some of the best arms we see all year.
Yeah, yeah. Talk about the start from Zane Adams, Megan, and what he did that night. I mean, we're probably as good as we've seen Zane in his 2 years here. That stretch from, I guess, the third through the sixth on this night was maybe as good as we've seen him yet.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's just one where it's a testament of what Zane is, not even what he will be, it's what he is now.
Mhm.
I think we saw that emerge kind of, last year with Arkansas, and this is really kind of just, what we can know to expect. Like,
Yeah.
he's gonna have bad outings, but inevitably, like, this is what he is, and it's a product of a Friday night guy in the SEC, and he carries himself that way against the number one team in the nation, and went out and did his job, and like, not a thing more we can ask for.
Right. And it gave the bats time to wake up and then you get the big double to clear the bases by LeBron. We're up 6-3 through the fourth. You're just you kind of if you could just hold them and keep them from having the big innings. And we did that largely this weekend, Roger. I think we they didn't have many big innings. I mean, they getting their twos and their ones. They did it consistently across the whole line.
And showing how good they are. It was normally with 2 outs. And how many 2-strike home runs and base clearing doubles did we give up?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, couldn't put them away. They refused to go down. But yeah, we did. They did have a 4-run inning
Saturday.
On Saturday, yes.
In a couple of like the Friday night game, Zane gets the first 2 guys easily. Kind of he's on a walk to Inslee.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Fisher hits a bomb, a 3-0 bomb.
Hits it to the Coliseum.
Yeah. So then you're behind, we're working from behind, which we were the whole weekend.
Right. And maybe the story of this game was just the defensive plays. I mean, they got a great catch by the right fielder, Reese Chapman, off the bat of Hodo, bottom of the second, that we were going to score 2 runs on there. We had first and second, 2 out, and they were all the way around. But the catch that Bryce Fowler made in the top of the sixth on a ball that was going out in the 6-3 game to leap the wall. I mean, and we didn't have the biggest crowd Thursday night. Obviously, Saturday I think was bigger, and Friday it was cold here too, Alex. It was about 45.
It was still more crowded than normal.
Yeah,
I mean, wasn't, the other 2 were hard sellouts. And this
hard sells, yeah.
Close.
But I don't know. I mean, I've seen this place pretty raucous on a few occasions, but maybe after that catch, I don't know if I've seen it quite there before, Roger.
Maybe Alex's 3-run homer in the top of the ninth against North Carolina.
the new Joe.
In the Super. But yeah, no, it went nuts. In the with the right field ragers out there, those guys all year, the students have really shown up. But I mean, they're out there beating on the wall the whole game now, and just they were really going crazy for it.
Yeah.
But he had some hops to get that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he went up and brought it back in.
He really did. Yeah, I mean, he caught it about an elbow height from the wall. So I mean, it was a great catch. And then we get to the ninth, we're up 6-5. We kind of hit this lull where it was like, oh my God, we've got 6. I don't think we're getting any more off these guys. They pretty well had us locked down, and they're chipping away. And with a 6-5 lead in the ninth, they get a guy on with 1 out, and Will Plattner just hoses this guy. I mean, right on the Alex, you'd love this. I don't know if you've seen the highlight, but you have to go look in in the recap. Will Plattner, our catcher, catches it was a 79 mile an hour kind of ball he had to reach out on, and he throws it right into the hip of the runner. And the tag is perfect on there. So it erases that runner, and we escape with a 6-5 win. So the catcher did his thing to kind of save the night.
Look, there's a couple of things that I would always tell people, is like, as a catcher, when you call a good game or you do something defensively to win a game, you take a lot more pride in that than actually maybe doing something offensively to win the game.
Right.
because that's not easy to do, especially in that situation. You're trying to get a guy. They're trying to get a guy in scoring position, and you throw him out, you take the wind out of their sails right there.
Yeah, yeah.
He was a little bitty fast guy too. I mean, he was, it was the first time he'd been caught this season.
And
Yeah.
He was on base all night. I think he had 3 hits that night. I mean, he was on base all weekend. It's crazy. They're playing a lot of freshmen, Roger. That they're for a team this stout. To be playing as many freshmen as they are, it's kind of scary to think about the arms they've got, the guys that they've got in the everyday lineup as freshmen right now. What that means for the next few years.
I know. I mean, they got a lot of guys to come to school that might not should have. I mean,
yeah.
that might normally not
50-50 maybe. Right. The really cool thing I think about this whole weekend, and obviously this was the highlight of it, is the Scouts row behind us was just packed. I mean, everywhere around us it was packed. There was the people were there, the buzz was there, the students were there. And when you follow this stuff, and of course we're kind of obsessive about it, but the baseball media, the college baseball media, which we've talked about a lot of times, it's different from the NFL media, and it's not like ESPN Game Day and college football. You don't have that in college baseball. So you've got all these kind of niche outlets, but everybody was talking about Alabama baseball. And I mean, I said it in the recap tweet. Whether or not you start believing your clippings or not, I mean, the kind of that old school theory of you don't want that. No, you want people talking about your program, right, Alex? I mean, and if you're an upstart like this, you want that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think as a player too, you ain't worried about that. Like,
right.
You can care less about who's talking. You're just trying to prove it on the field.
Yeah.
The one thing that, like, when you're playing against tough competition, and in Tennessee's aspect of where they're right now the number 1 team in the country, like, you have a lot less room for error. You have to be
right.
You can't give them outs, and you have to take advantage of every opportunity you have, and usually, and that's just not just college baseball, that goes in the professional ranks as well. When you face the best of the best, someone that has that much depth, that much talent, you just know as players, your room for error is a lot less.
Yeah.
And so you have to be on point with how you play the game fundamentally in order to beat a team like that.
Right. And you can't give them outs, but you can't give them pitches. These guys will,
right.
If you in a 6-pitch at bat make one mistake, these guys they're gonna do something with it. You're not gonna get away with it, right?
Oh yeah. No, that's when you're like I said, when you're facing a team that is that deep in talent, and also just not just deep with talent, but the talent that also can play fundamental baseball and have good approaches. You have to match them in that type of style of play, and you still have to play your game.
Right.
You have to play a flawless game. I wouldn't necessarily be perfect, because you're not going to be perfect, but you just have to play clean baseball. In order, and that doesn't guarantee you're going to win either. That gives you the chance, and that's something that you strive for as a team and as a player individually, of what your job is on the field. And if you can get everybody to kind of collectively be able to do that, to play a clean game, then you'll have a chance to beat a team like that.
Exactly. So we get through Friday or Thursday. We get into Friday, and you think, oh boy, here we go. Maybe there's Saturday guys not as good as the Friday guys. They throw out Marcus Phillips. Drew some impressions on Marcus Phillips. I mean, that guy was just a hammer up there.
Yeah, I mean, he was really good, especially at the start of the game. We really got to him, I think, middle of the innings. I mean, I think they really thought at the start he might go 7 or 8, but I thought we battled with him. The problem all week last week was getting behind by 3 or more runs every time or maybe 2 before we scored. I think it was 3. So, yeah, I mean, this was just a tough game for other reasons. But yeah, he was really good. I think if we hadn't have been in a 5-0 hole, it could have been a little different. But scrapped and got him out after 5, I think.
Yeah, we chased him in the 5th with 2 out. We had the tying runners on his 5-3 game. I think he'd walked a couple of guys home that inning, maybe.
Yeah,
If I remember right.
Got the pitch count up.
Yeah, Dylan Loy comes in, another lefty, and I think he struck out.
Norton.
Yeah, with bases loaded. Yeah, but and I commented on it at the time. I think the atmosphere at the Joe was at that point was like it was the night before. I think that might have been kind of the crescendo. That was the turning point of the weekend. I mean, let's face it, we were on the verge of taking a lead there. If you take a lead there and you jump on them, you got momentum, you might take them down that day, and then no matter what happened Saturday, right? To me, that felt like kind of the peak. Roger, what do you think?
That was definitely a huge point, and then also our bullpen imploding in the 8th.
Yeah,
to let it get more out of hand, even though we ended up with a tying run at the plate in the bottom of the 9th, even with all that going on. But we give up a 4 spot in the 8th after 2. We got 2 outs
and 2 out. Yeah,
2 out. The first 2 batters struck out, and then it just single, home run, walk, hit by pitch, walk, 2-run single.
Those innings out.
Yeah.
And I mean that essentially put it out of reach. I mean, we've come back from a 10-0 deficit this year and some other things, but we get. Let's talk about the other kind of key play in the 8th. First and second, 2 out. I believe the score was 10-6. Had Bull hit the home run yet, or did he hit that?
No, he hit that in the 9th. It was 5. It was 10-5.
It was 10-5. 2 outs, 10-5 game, first and second. LeBron at the plate. So you got your
best player in the country is at the plate.
Right. Kind of explain what happened.
So
if you can,
I got lots of questions.
LeBron's sitting there with a 3-1 count. Richie's at second. Bryce Fowler's at first. Our 2 fastest runners, our 2 best base stealers, and there are 2 outs.
Yeah,
and for some reason, which from what I understand, it's not a missed signal, not a given signal. No. They just did it.
It's Richie's call, I think, on that.
Probably, right. So Richie, Alex, this guy, Richie Bonamalos from the Bronx, he's a JUCO transfer. In junior college, in 2 years, he stole 108 bases and got caught 4 times. So he's at second, has a good lead, a good jump. Yeah. He takes off.
He stole it. He has his bag stolen. Mm-hmm. Fowler,
I don't like it. To me, it almost looked like he hesitated. And then, did I miss the signal? Richie's gone. I got to go. Well, and then they throw him out in the inning. With he's leading the nation in RBI. And if they still
right
3-1 pitch, and if they steal both bases, they're going to walk him.
Yeah,
because that's happened before. They did it earlier in the season. They did a double steal in the same, not the same situation, but they double stole, and it's like, all right, you're going to first. We're not going to let you knock 2 runs in right here.
Yeah, down the middle too.
That took air out of our sails right there. And
we took the bat out of his hands. I mean, I think the thing to me, and I guess Rob addressed it a little bit post game. He didn't, I kind of read it between the lines that it was really up to the players to do. I mean, he didn't throw him under the bus. He didn't take the blame or anything but I kind of read into it that maybe they've got the option or the flexibility to do that. Alex, you would have been proud of the Tennessee catcher because he instead of he picks
instinctually throws the second base to throw out the trail runner. Actually, I think I ended up seeing that a replay of that. That, I mean, those are the types of situations where, I mean, when you have a guy like that at second base that has that kind of success stealing bases, I mean, usually, like, you're going to leave it up to him, like his discretion to be able to, steal a bag when he needs to steal a bag. But at the same time, like, I've always been a big believer in, playing the game according to the scoreboard and the situation. And also too, like, when you're stealing a bag, when you're trying to steal a base, like, you have to, look at the situation. Like, what do I have to gain here? Like, what?
Sure.
If I get to the next base, is that bringing in some sort of advantage to my team? Am I getting in scoring position that's going to make a difference? When you look at that situation, with the score where it was, with the best hitter in the country, at the plate on a 3-1 count, You know, there's a couple things there. One, I'm not sure why you would try to steal any bag when you're already in scoring position with two outs, with your best hitter at the plate. The other thing on the trail runner side, I was never the fastest runner, and there were many times I was on first base as a trail runner with a guy that could run in front of me, and there would be times that guy would take off. Well, sure as hell, I would not go unless I had a great jump. And, so that's also one of those situations where, again, you have to know the situation with two outs. Even if that guy takes off at second base when he probably shouldn't have, you also have to be, mindful of your situation, not worry about him.
Right.
And if I don't get a good jump here, I got to stay home. I got to stay where I'm at.
Right.
So just, from seeing that replay, looking at the situation, I'm a big believer in, play the game according to the scoreboard. And, probably not the smartest base running decision in that inning.
Yeah. Drew,
that pitch though. So I want to talk about the pitch right down the middle. LeBron, I'm guessing he's just taking all the way when he sees his guys go. You guys think that's a good pitch?
Well, it was 3-0. It was 3-0.
It's 3-1. Okay.
That was 3-1.
Well,
pretty sure it's 3-1.
3-1. Yeah. It's 3-1.
I mean, sometimes with a runner at second base, that guy is in your line of sight when you're at the plate. So if he does something you're not expecting, it could be distracting. And just that split second, the ball's by you, and you can't make that decision whether to swing or not. I know guys. I've known many big time run producers in the big leagues. When they had a guy on second base that can steal a bag, they would actually tell him, "Don't, I'll drive you in." Right. Because they didn't want to get distracted. Now, some other guys, it didn't really matter, but it can happen where, if you're not expecting, that guy at second base to do something, and it can distract you just even for a split second and impede you to make a decision on whether to swing or not.
Yeah. So that essentially ended it. I kind of feel like, we made a nice little rally in the ninth and got, made it a little bit interesting, but it kind of took the wind out of our sails. The other thing I want to point out, the pitching decisions that night, Austin Morris is just mowing guys. He's just mowing fools down, man. He was like, 2 solid innings. He's only thrown 24 pitches. And we pull him probably maybe it's the 7th, maybe going into the 8th.
He pitched the 5th and the 6th.
Yeah.
Brought Faye in.
Brought Faye in. I like the way we tend to balance out. You've got a kind of a good right-hander with a good slider in Morris. He's doing a good job with it. The next guy you bring in might be your lefty like Brian's, or it might be, somebody else, somebody with a different name. But you go from Morris to Faye when Morris surely had more gas in the tank and the game was in question. So it's not like you're throwing it in, saving for the next day. I didn't like that decision. It's not up to me, but your thoughts on that from anybody?
I've got thoughts. Boy, I hated that decision.
We're not normally very critical, but we're going to criticize. That's why we're here.
So I it was kind of a deal where Quick starts the game, they get 5 off of him. Then it comes to find out he's got the blister, but he was missing the zone.
Blood blister.
Also, Also, he didn't get help from his defense. LeBron should have turned a double play on the first.
Yeah.
Snell lets a ball and left go all the way to the wall. Those can't happen against anyone. But Blackwood, I think, did fine. Morris was outstanding. I thought he had more in the tank. He's 6 up, 6 down, so you could have faced 3 more. Hadn't seen him. And then
pitches.
Early in the season, Vaughn had talked about how they like to mix up what hitters hate seeing is throwing different pitchers in order. And I kind of felt like we threw 4 of the same guys, and then Faye just didn't have it. And he's kind of a guy who's got the stuff, but the production really
great stuff. Yeah.
Our buddy at Rig Stevenson texted me and said his ERA in SEC games since last year is like 11 something.
Yeah. Right.
So he just struggled in the 7th, gave up a run, and then the 8th, 2 strikeouts, and then it just kind of fell apart. So,
well, in the 7th, he got the first 2 out. Then walks the guy, then gives up the double, and then strikes the next guy out. He
got him with 2 outs.
Getting the 3rd out has been tough.
It's a little bit like, I mean, into Sunday, which, I mean, we won't talk much about Saturday because that game was what it was. But I saw it out of Alcock in the early innings that he was in. He just didn't have an out pitch. He was getting ahead of guys in counts, but he couldn't get that 3rd strike by them or get it in play. And they kept fouling him off. And next thing you know, it's 1-2. Next thing you know, it's 2-2. And then they foul 2 more off. It's 3-2. And then he walks them or he hits them or he has to groove them something. It's tough with some guys. Some guys can kind of pitch to the contact. Now let's maybe you speak to that. How do you help that guy over the hump in those situations?
Well, that's the tough part. Sometimes when you're throwing like your best stuff early on in order to get ahead, then what do you have left to be able to put them away?
Right. I mean, what's your out pitch?
Right. Exactly. Sometimes guys tend, you can fall into the trap of trying to use your best pitch or your out pitch early in order to get ahead and get an advantage counts, but then they've already seen it. Then the advantage starts to, creep back towards the hitter when you're then trying to get them out. So that's actually what you try to do is pitch to, more contact early in the count, in order to get, quicker outs, but then you also have to sequence and set your pitches up in order to use your best stuff to get the outs, as opposed to using it early to get
ahead
to get the outs.
Yeah. Interesting. That was, if you were watching this Saturday, it was just, that was the story of that game, is just how our starter got worn down by struggling through trying to get that 3rd strike or get the ball in play. And they just kept fouling off. And of course, little gamesmanship on the Tennessee part. I mean, the batter would wander back to the on deck circle and spray whatever that is. He's spraying the pine tar or whatever. And as we're harassing him, then he goes and jacks one out to the Coliseum.
They did that twice that weekend. They sprayed their bats and then hit home runs like the Saturday game.
But he got way more than the 20 seconds.
Yeah,
and he got 2 different timeouts.
Yeah. So I don't know what he sprayed on there, but I questioned the legality of that after watching what happened next.
Spraying steroids on the bat.
Yeah.
Typical Tony V kind of gamesmanship, I think. But and that's kind of what set Coach Vaughn off on Saturday to where he goes and gets ejected. I think it was a smart ejection, and I mean we've got Tommy Lasorda's godchild here. We got the expert on guys getting run. This was a pretty good one. I think strategically you would have thought it might have lit a fire under us. The problem was they got Tegan Coons out there pumping 95 to 98. We could barely get a base runner in the first 5 innings. So it fired us up, but I don't think our bats responded at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much to maybe like the response on that day, but it's just the fact that, it sends a message to your players that, he has your back. And that's more for the next day and the next game and the next series, as opposed to that game.
Yeah.
And it really started because our catcher said that he had caught a tip 3rd strike. Foul tip which would have struck the first guy out that hit the home run. And that kind of set everything in motion. Or was he the second?
Yeah, that upset me too.
Guy, I guess. Well, anyway, and everybody that was watching at home on TV said it clearly bounced. I mean, I don't know why Will told City, but that's not contrary to what the volunteer fans believe. That's not why Rob was out there arguing.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, he was stupid. He was arguing about something that was clearly a foul ball. Well, that's not what he's arguing about. But.
Right. And I think Rob had really good perspective on it. And you heard him tonight on Hey Coach, I heard him a little bit on the radio talking about this. It's like, you that weekend wasn't the end all be all. It's a little bit about like what I said in the recap for the Saturday game. You want to be the man, you got to beat the man. And we had to play him. You got to at some point figure out where you measure up against that upper end of the conference to decide if you got what it takes to be there or you got what it takes to get yourself there. And I think I think he had good perspective on it. Hey, you're 4-2. You got things you can build on. You made mistakes, but you can correct them, and you got to do this 24 more times in the conference against similar opponents.
Similar to, yes. There's not
instances.
There's not a lot of easy marks in the conference for sure.
Right. Alex, when you look at this conference now and what it is, Tennessee number one comes to town. We did this last year. We had number one come to town 2 straight weekends in a row, right? It was Tennessee. We had the same thing. This was Tennessee. We got Oklahoma coming to town this weekend. They're consensus top 8, 10 right now. I mean, when you look at this conference and how stacked it is with 16 teams, I mean, it's you look back at some of the programs probably didn't have a whole lot of emphasis on this sport back in your day. What do you see here now?
I mean, it's always been the best conference in the country, but I don't know exactly what the rankings are now, but what is it like? Probably out of the top 15 teams, 10 of them are SEC teams, something like that, something close to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something you understand though, but as a player playing in the SEC, that it's not going to be easy getting through it, but that's where like a series like this past weekend can help you. That you had it earlier on in the season against one of the best in the country, to where it shows you where you need to clean up. What you need to clean up is, from a fundamental perspective, because the way you continually have success in this conference is play clean baseball. You can't make mistakes that are not just physical mistakes, but the mental mistakes. Whether it's giving extra outs or putting yourself or running into outs, and also the other thing too is like what I would always think about, and actually, this is something Jim Wells would always kind of drill into us when I was at Alabama, having to get through an SEC season is in a game, you're going to have that team is going to come at you at least twice.
Right.
And there's going to be in that game, 2 of those innings, that team, it's going to start to snowball, whether it's a base hit or a walk that starts it off or a hit by pitch. You have to recognize and expect those innings. You can't get caught off guard and surprised by those types of innings. To where if you expect them, it allows you to prepare for those innings, to be able to either make the pitch when you need to make the pitch or make the play when you need to make the play in order to limit the damage and hold it there, as opposed to letting it snowball and all of a sudden becoming a 5 or 6 spot in that inning.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, when you have those chances on the offensive side, be aggressive with them. Make sure you're prepared in those chances to be able to take advantage of them.
Yeah, got to make it. And this has been a pretty good.
But it's about clean baseball. You got to play clean baseball.
Exactly. This has been a pretty good team about not giving up the really big innings. I mean, obviously the Ohio State we had down there in that game, and turned into a great outcome. And even this team, I mean, they kind of hung in there Sunday. I don't know how. And then they get the bases clearing. I mean, they get the bases clearing double or triple or whatever it was on the ball Snell dives for. Snell made a hell of a play trying to get after it. It was an effort play, but it got by him. We were never in the game Saturday. I mean, let's face it. I mean, here's my tweet in the 4th inning. The bad news is we're trailing 4-0 middle of the 4th. The good news, it feels like it should be 14-0. At that time, we were looking for our first hit and base runner. We had been 9 up, 9 down. They already had 8 hits, and we had walked 3 of their guys and hit a batter. So it's hard to recover from that. But we were only down 4-0. So we just never got the bats. Never got bats moving and going until the 9th. Really, I guess 8th and 9th, we got a little something on the board. But that's what Tennessee's going to do to a lot of clubs. Maybe we didn't expect to have that done to us this weekend. I think that we thought, maybe the taste in your mouth after the weekend would be a little better if that had been a little tighter game. But in perspective, and I think I said this as well, you got Oklahoma coming to town. You got to dust it off and go play them. You win 2 out of 3 this weekend with them, and you forget about this, right?
I mean, we've got A&M and Florida sitting there both 0-6.
0-6. Yeah, it could be a hell of a lot. Mississippi State 1-5. Mississippi
Alex,
State.
you ever think you'd see it, Florida 0-6 in the SEC? And
No, but
Mississippi State 1-5, like Paul just said. So
right.
yeah, I mean that's just that's SEC baseball. It's not easy. I mean the competition's stiff, but you have to it's very easy to fall into the roller coaster and to ride that roller coaster throughout the season. So that, I mean, as a team, as players, you have to always keep perspective,
Right.
And constantly look forward. And that's always been helpful to me as a player, not just when I played in college, but also, professionally. You have to have perspective, because once you start riding that roller coaster, then your peaks and valleys end up becoming greater and greater apart as the season goes on, as opposed to, staying steady and kind of being even keel throughout it.
Players are much better than that than fans are.
Exactly.
No doubt about that. That's
players, coaches. I mean, everybody involved. I mean,
well, you have to be, right? You have to be.
You'd make yourself crazy if not.
Yeah, as a player, that's one of that's the only way that you can, like you said, you'll drive yourself crazy. That's the only way that you'll be able to have any sort of sustained success, not only individually but as a team. Like you and me now can watch a game, and you can, we can ride that roller coaster because we have no consequence, with riding that roller coaster. Well, for a player, he might be sitting that next game, or he doesn't get that next opportunity because he is, kind of on that roller coaster and digs himself in a hole, or the team digs himself in a hole, and it's too far to dig out of. So, it's imperative to have, in order to have success, you have to be able to stay even keel with some perspective.
Yeah. Team's coming out relatively healthy. I mean, we hadn't had any, knock on wood, arm problems. The blister issue with Riley, I think, Roger, you said you saw him, and it's pretty gnarly, but it shouldn't affect him this weekend, we don't think.
I hope not. Yeah. It's it was his middle finger.
On his right hand.
Couldn't snap his ball.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, we noticed it almost right away. You just saw his slider. He was throwing it harder than he normally does, and maybe it's just because he couldn't get the spin on it, couldn't grip it, and when it basically relegated him to being a one-pitch pitcher, they're able to. They, I mean, to their credit, were patient and kind of served out, just serve it out the left field or serve it to right field. They had, 6 singles off of him, if I remember right, in the timing of his batting. It's not like they were, piping balls out into the alleys or whatever. So they kind of fought him off.
Just a couple of those were hard hit, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
So we got through that. I mean, it's hopefully that's his one rough start for the year. But the other thing, good news, Meghan, Garrett Staten coming back. What do you see out of him? Hopefully, or what to expect from Garrett Staten being back?
I mean, I'm real glad I'm not Rob having to figure out who's sitting games now. But we can benefit from that, whether it's Brennan, whether it's Torres. Like I think maybe there's a couple of guys in that infield that could take a game off or two. And sure. From what Roger was saying, it looks like that power's there. So let's see what happens.
I would, if I had to bet, I'd say Staten will play second tomorrow, and then and then figure out what goes from there.
Yeah. Talked to his dad during the pregame, maybe one of the days over there. He showed me the X-ray of the finger and the screw in it. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You can get something like that crammed into a bone in your finger and be right back playing in however many weeks it's been. But be good to have him back. Pitching wise, I mean, again, you go into the game tomorrow night. Hopefully you get guys some work. Hopefully we don't have to go to Osmer and Myers on a Tuesday again, and with North Alabama. But get these guys a little bit of rest, so we're not making them too weary as we get into the weekend. Oklahoma will come to town. They're coming off taking 2 out of 3 from Mississippi State at home. They won their first weekend 2 out of 3, so they're 4-2 heading into this series with us. It's a good, very good pitching club. Drew, what you seen much or followed much with Oklahoma to see what they got?
I think the Witherspoon brothers and Cam
Yeah,
Johnson as their pitchers, the LSU guy. I don't know much about them. I know they played South Carolina. I think they won 2 out of 3
yeah,
on the
2 out of 3.
road, and South Carolina's we don't play them, so I guess I could say whatever I want to say about them. But they're probably one of the lower, in that 14 to
Bottom end.
16 range in the SEC.
Mhm.
Mississippi State, I think they're better than their record. They just kind of run into
Mhm.
just a buzzsaw, and they just outplayed them. I think this is kind of one of those where really interesting bounce back series for
Yeah.
Alabama, just
Mhm.
because of this is kind of a team you compare yourself to. Maybe Tennessee and Arkansas and LSU might just be a little more obviously more established the last several years, but
Yeah,
you want to kind of get up there with those guys, then you need to take 2 out of 3 at least from Oklahoma at home.
exactly. Yeah.
But they are good, so we'll
Oh
see.
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. I mean, winning 2 out of 3 for these guys is going to be a chore. Megan,
Mhm.
what you think we do it? You go and sweep again?
I mean, the bit says I have to, but I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna think two or three
Two or three,
realistically.
yeah.
I did see a little bit of Oklahoma during that South Carolina series they
Uh,
had.
mhm.
Um, they're a good team. I will say
Yeah,
to South Carolina's credit, like they were close games. The ones against Mississippi State were close games. So I think it's one where if we can avoid what we did this weekend of getting ourselves in a hole, we should be
yeah,
able to do our job pretty well.
right, right. And I mean, we've talked about it a lot. I mean, like, look at this team. They're winning one-run games. They're winning tightly well pitched games, and then they won like a 12-11 or 11-10 game the night before. So it's kind of like Auburn last year, just lost a lot of one-run games. All of a sudden they're winning one-run games, and they're 4-2 2 weekends in. Drew, who you got? And why?
Uh, in our I'm going to take Alabama 2 out of 3. I don't know which one, but
Yeah,
it's just you got to get ahead. You got to
yeah,
take
exactly.
go and just make their. I think is it Kyson? I think is it Witherspoon.
I think
They're
so.
throwing
Weatherspoon, yeah,
98. Yeah, it's like you
yeah.
got to work them, get them out of there in the fifth or sixth, like
Mhm.
we did with Doyle and Tennessee's
Yeah.
second guy, and not so much with the third guy.
Yeah. I mean, every year we see it. I mean, you get into these guys coming into town, you start seeing more the guys that were kind of cutting through the Presbyterians and North Dakota states of the world and start struggling and we're seeing that. I mean, you got guys struggling up and down the order, but we saw some good things maybe late in the game on Friday night. Didn't really carry over so much to Saturday, but you're starting to see those splits. Yeah, and I'm talking about
Yeah, let me add one more thing. The crowd.
uh,
So I was not there Thursday.
uh,
Watched it obviously, and I was there
mhm.
Friday and Saturday, and our crowd was just so incredible. Just looking for a reason to explode.
Yeah,
And on Friday and Saturday, we never could give them that reason to do so. Just
no,
that one big hit, just couldn't quite
exactly.
get,
Yeah.
especially Friday night. So
Friday
hopefully
and
the
the
crowd will be really good again
uh,
this weekend. Day games Saturday and Sunday, a night
yeah,
game
very
Friday.
nice.
So
Yeah.
looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
Friday and the 5th, I think, is where that happened. I mean, if something had happened well there, that would have
Yeah.
gone a long way. Roger, who you got? And I'll check with Alex.
I'll go with my Bama 2 out of 3.
2 or 3, okay.
That's been my protocol so far.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, since Megan wouldn't do it, I'm going to call it a sweep. I think we get I think we have a big rebound. I think we send the Sooners back with their tails tucked to
yes, let's do
on the
it.
wagon train back to Oklahoma. So I think we have a big rebound week and again I like the message Rob has. I like the mentality of this team. And I'm anxious to see how they recover from a pretty good spanking they got this last weekend. Alex, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, you you kind of stole my thought a little bit there, Paul. But I mean, you go into every single series with the goal to win the series
Yeah.
until you have an opportunity to win the third game and sweep. So I'm going to
Yeah.
go sweep with you.
All
Yeah.
right, awesome. Yeah, yeah, but that's why we got him on here. This
Hey, MLB Network. He's got to know what he's talking about.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. Hey,
Plenty of my predictions have been right, but plenty have been wrong too.
Yeah. All right, and I got one more question for you, and then we'll let you tell us a little bit about when we'll see you, where we'll see you on the tube here coming up. One of our one of our viewers, if I can find it. I can't find who. Oh, here it is. Yeah. King Zenry at King Zenry on Twitter. Any cool stories from playing with Miguel Cabrera?
Oh man, there's a lot of them. I knew Miguel when he was 16. Yeah, for a long time. My dad actually signed Miguel out of Venezuela when my dad was working for the Florida Marlins, and so I met Miguel when he was 16. He's I think 4 years older than me. Yeah, so in the backfields at the in Melbourne during their spring training facility at the time.
Yeah.
And never would have thought like we would have been teammates for as long as we did. We were teammates for 8 years.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And just one of the best memories I have was him coming off the field when he had the Triple Crown locked up and kind of getting the ovation from the crowd. That was pretty amazing. But I always thought that Miguel, if he didn't have to worry about driving in runs and he could just go up there and hit and just go get base hits, he could probably hit 400.
Oh wow.
That's how good of a hitter he was, just naturally gifted hitter. I remember times like in batting practice, because we were a lot of times in the same batting practice group. I'd be hitting balls, like crushing them to right center field, just hitting balls, 400 plus feet. I'd be hitting them off the scoreboard, stuff like that.
Pull side, you're a lefty.
Pull side. And he'd come in, he'd kind of look at me just like, that ain't anything. And he'd go opposite field, right center field as a right-handed hitter over the scoreboard. And, he had tremendous power, but just an absolute pure hitter, best hitter I'd ever seen, best hitter I'd play with. Future Hall of Famer.
He seemed like such a fun guy too, right?
Yeah, very, very, very much a jokester. Loved to joke around in the clubhouse. Didn't take things too seriously. Didn't take himself too seriously. Especially with his teammates and within the clubhouse. Loved baseball, and actually one of the smartest. I mean, he doesn't get a lot of credit for this because he was such a slugger and good hitter. He was actually a pretty good first baseman and one of the highest baseball IQ guys that I played with and against at times over the course of my career. Like he was probably one of the smartest players that I played with and against.
Wow,
that's incredible. Yeah. Appreciate that. All right, Alex, tell us a little bit about what you're doing this spring and summer with the baseball season.
Yeah, well, I mean, throughout this year, we got opening day starting on Thursday. So over the course of the year, I'll be in and out of MLB Network, kind of throughout all of their live programming throughout the season. The shows like MLB Tonight, MLB Central, MLB Now. Throughout the year. Usually I go and do some live shows once or twice a month for about 4 or 5 days, and talk baseball. We go through all the games, go in and out, live look-ins to all the games, and it's actually a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun doing it. Yeah, a lot of the other analysts too, guys that I either played with, played against. So it's kind of like being back on a team. And also just doing some broadcasting work for some teams. Last year I did some work for the Marlins, the Nationals, and the Tigers.
Nice.
This year kind of mixing it up again with some of those teams as well throughout the year, and so that'll kind of keep me busy throughout the baseball season. Great,
very cool to hear. And you mentioned hopefully we'll see you at Mississippi State weekend. You're going to try to get.
Yeah, I'm hoping to come into T-Town for that Mississippi State series. I believe it's April 11th, 12th that weekend. So trying to make it work to be able to get there and see some Alabama baseball. I haven't been back to campus actually since the Joe was renovated.
2016, January, February of 2016. Yeah.
That was the last time I was there. So it's long overdue.
Yeah, it should be a lot of buzz that weekend. That's we mentioned it's A-days that weekend. A lot of people will be in town. There'll be a great scene. It always is. State usually brings a nice crowd, but hopefully we can carry through these crowds like we had the other night. I mean, if we can keep that momentum, I think that's great for our program. Definitely getting a lot of publicity and a lot of attention from it, and I think people are discovering what a kind of a special program we got going here. Any closing thoughts from anybody?
Just appreciate Alex and all the knowledge and
that was fantastic.
All the great stories.
Yeah. Yep. Really appreciate you. We would love to have you on again. We go long, but we can talk baseball all night. So as you can, obviously, we can
absolutely.
Tell you can.
Yeah. No, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks
a lot of fun.
Just be in touch about that series. I'll make sure we take care of you.
For sure, Raj. I'll let you know as soon as I know.
Sounds good.
All right.
I'll give you a place to stay.
Big weekend in Alabama baseball. Oklahoma coming to town Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Day games Saturday, Sunday. Great weather this past weekend. Hopefully the rain holds off. It was a little dicey a little bit further out, but we shouldn't have a 45-degree night anytime this time. Basketball, big week. Sweet 16, BYU. That's Thursday night, so there's no conflict. We're living right this year. We don't have a lot of conflict with our baseball games and our basketball team. Shout out to the ladies today too. What a hell of a game they had. They fell in the second round of the turn. Sarah Ashley Barker, what'd she finish with?
45 points.
45 points.
Most in SEC history in the NCAA tournament.
NCAA tournament. So in her final game here, I think, right? It's a fun
thing.
But great job, Coach Curry and the ladies. Man, if we could have had that game at home, that'd been great. But their season ends, but a hell of a finish. Thanks, Christian Sykes, for staying up late with us as usual. Crimson Crossover for racking this in the morning for us. And as always, thanks to Campland, Peter Sly. Thanks to all you. Thanks to the Ragers for showing out like you did this weekend. Hope you're all there this weekend again. And we look forward to talking to you again here next week on the Weekly Joe.
Swing it, boys, swing for the fence. Shove it, boys, shove it, boys, make 'em miss. Some big league chew and a baseball souvenir. Come on, sing with me now. The Joe is home, sweet home. It's roll, tide, roll. The Joe is home, that's right. Home, sweet home. Hey, look, is that Roll Tide Willie over there? Well, it's Bama